Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to be showing you Lisa Eldridge's new summer colour story, which comprises of one new eyeshadow palette called Desert Gleam and 3 new lipstick shades. She wants us to be channeling the late 60s and early 70s, so we need to be wearing our safari suits as we stride through the desert, avoiding the cacti and basically looking as glamorous as possible. The question is, are you here for it? Watch on! Desert Gleam comes in Lisa Eldridge's now iconic packaging, which actually is my favourite packaging these days for eyeshadows. And here are the shades. They just look so usable to me. They really do. I mean, she always says her palettes are totally harmonious, and I think especially here, it just feels like all the shades can be used interchangeably together without having to think. But let's see what the swatches look like. You can probably see from the state of it, I haven't been able to resist to get my paws into it. But let's take a closer look. So here are the first 3 colours. I know it really looks like I'm swearing an oath to my love of makeup, but I think that's apposite. Okay, so here's the first one. Dunes, which is a seamless matte. That's going to be almost my skin tone, I think. This one here, Chrysina, which is luminous. Look at that. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? And then here we have Acacia, a seamless matte. Now, I've put them on here. Can you see that Dunes is almost my skin tone, so you can't see it as well. But you can see the lovely sheen of Chrysina in the middle, luminous. And then next to it we've got Acacia, the seamless matte, which is, it's not quite a bitter chocolate. It's definitely cool, but it's not really cool. There is a teeny bit of warmth in there. As I said, not quite bitter chocolate. So let's look at the next 3 colours. And here are the next 3 colours. Here we have Ablaze, which is a metallic. I mean, look at that. If you just look at it on its own. Oof, it's rather lovely. It's a bronze, but not quite as bronzy as we're used to. Then we have in the middle here, Khaki, which is a velvet. And then here we have Firefly. This is the colour I really wanted to try, which is a metallic. And that is what they're like on the hand. So here is that very soft metallic, which is called Ablaze. As I said, not quite a bronze. It's not quite as punchy as a bronze. It's softer, but it's still got impact. Then in the middle we've got Khaki, which is I think is a true khaki. So often, both in clothes and fashion, as well as in makeup, khaki has just got a lot more green in it, and actually a true khaki is exactly that. It's much more soft, more muted. And then that final colour, Firefly, the metallic, which I'm hoping is really going to pop on my skin tone. So that's the colour story. I think it's a very soft and usable story. I'm really hoping, which is what I thought when I opened this palette, that this is going to be a palette that lots of people can enjoy, especially people who don't actually think that they like greens, because it's such a soft colour story that you can invite some green onto your eyelids without really committing. Let's try them on. I thought my camera was on, but it wasn't. So here's the thing. I have put this shade, which is just the seamless matte in Dunes, all over both eyelids, and on this eye you can see I've already started doing it with my finger. I'm just putting a little bit of Chrysina just on the lid, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's sparkly, but it's not really green. Let me bring you closer so that you can see what I mean. Yeah, it's not really green. It's like to me it's like a very light gold that's got a little bit of green in it. So, but it's not gold. I'm not really describing this very well. It's a very light goldy green that on my eyes probably doesn't translate as very green. I'm sure it depends on your skin tone, but just have a look at what that looks like. And that's just with my finger and no skill. I think what I'll do now is I'll put some of the khaki just in the crease, just to blend it all in a little bit on the outer. And then what we'll do is I'll put some of the lovely bronzy shade on as well. As you would expect, Lisa Eldridge, they're just going on really easily. They're really easy to blend. And when I say they're easy to blend, they blend themselves. There's nothing to do, really. You just need a brush for this. But look how soft that is. I mean, I would quite happily just leave it at that. I'm not saying it's the most sophisticated eyeshadow, but this is me, and this is how I roll. But this is just, that with some mascara is lovely. You've made your statement, or I've made my statement with a lovely eyeshadow that looks modern and fresh. But I don't feel that and I say this as a green lover, I don't feel I've really committed to green, and my eyelids are walking in before I do. So I think that that's why this may well be a real winner, this eyeshadow palette, because you don't have to go the whole hog. I'm going to try putting a little bit of Ablaze, that bronzy shade, on top. Is that going to darken it? It may do it a little bit. Let's just see. Yeah, it just darkens it a little bit, doesn't it? But you still get that, you see, that shift without too much commitment. That's what I would say. Green without commitment. Yeah. Let's put a little bit of the darkest shade, Acacia, underneath. And what I'll do is I'll put a little bit more of Chrysina just on the inner corner. See what that looks like. Very nice. I do like these 6 pans because I don't feel I have to think. You can just use one of the shimmers with a couple of the mattes and you're done. And there's not that thing that sometimes I do feel with the bigger palettes. For example, Natasha Denona's, as much as I love them, it does become a little bit of an intellectual exercise. Oh, which 4 colours am I going to choose? And I know she groups them really easily. It's just that it can be a bit overwhelming when you're in a rush. Oh, and for me, sometimes I feel obliged to be a bit more adventurous than I'd ordinarily like to be on a given day. With these, you just choose 2 colours, they all go, and you're done, which I do appreciate. So that's one. So all I've done here, in other words, is use this as the main. I popped a little bit of this experimentally just to make it a little bit deeper. And as I used a little bit of the darker shade just in the crease. So that is really very easy. Let's try the other shade now. So I'm going to go for this one. As I said, this is the colour that I was most excited about. I'm just going to go in with my finger and let's see what that's like. Ooh, lovely. I have to say, when I saw Lisa herself on the video, these did look, I would say, a little bit brighter. And I did worry a bit because I did think, oh, I would rather have a slightly more muted palette that's greeny in my collection than something that's got too much punch. Not that I don't enjoy a bit of, as you know, bright shimmer, but just in terms of where I was at. And I would say I'm getting lovely shimmer and dimension, but it's not too much. I think especially for an evening, this is fine. So that's that. Can you see it's not quite a gold, is it? Firefly, that's a good name for it actually, isn't it? Sitting around the campfire in the desert and a firefly comes along and you think, oh, that would make a lovely eyeshadow. I know, I think that all the time. Now let's put a little bit of the old, I had to look to see what it was called, Acacia, just on the crease a little bit, just to see if we can deepen it up a little bit. Well, that goes nicely because that smokes it nicely. And that's very nice. Those two go very nicely together, I think. Yeah, so I would say that's easy drama to create. Lovely. Yeah. And what I'll do is I'll put a little bit of Chrysina again in the corner, just to put a little bit of light in with my new favourite brush from Refa 21, which is sold out. I was so annoyed because they're half price. And I went back in to get a couple more and they're sold out. Okay. I'm going to put a little bit of this lovely Ablaze, that kind of bronzy shade underneath. Yeah, these are very easy. And actually, as I look at the palette, you've got the 3 mattes, which are just so easy. The khaki you saw is incredibly soft as a tone. So it's not like you have to work very hard to blend it in or that it might feel too much. I think it won't feel too much for most people if you just give it a go. It's a question of, I think sometimes it's just a question of being brave. I was like this for years with blues. It took me ages to understand that blues didn't have to be so scary. And I think greens are like that, although I think green is easier because I think these earthy tones are just easier to blend. Okay, so that is Ablaze, the metallic underneath, which I think is rather nice. It's very soft. It's not got the harshness that I do sometimes feel with bronzes, and I actually feel that with golds as well. So even though I feel golds should be a natural fit for me, oftentimes they're not. They're just too much in your face, so I'm not mad on that. Now, actually, I think with this one, we can put a little bit of the acacia on top as an eyeliner. So I will do that now as well. Just a little bit, for a little bit more definition. And I'm using Refa 23, just a little teeny tiny pencil brush. Now, I would say with this palette, the thing that it does is it's similar to Muse, and obviously not in the colour story, but in that it's soft variations on a theme, as opposed to Sorcery, which I'll talk about a little bit later, which has got an awful lot going on. When I say awful, I mean in the nicest sense, but there's a lot going on there. Whereas, as I said, with Desert Gleam, it's very much a homogeneous story. All the colours just blend well together. So I'm going to go and put some mascara on. I'm going to put some of Lisa's Burnt Umber on. I did see her do this, and actually, as you know, I'm mad on brown mascaras anyway, and Burnt Umber is a particular favourite, so because it's just got that slight more warmth to it. So I'm just going to go and put that on and I'll be back. So I've put Burnt Umber mascara on. My mascara is coming to the end of its life, and as such it gave me a really nice thickened lash, probably a bit more than you would expect from this, but even so the colour is so great, it's just perfect, and I will replace it because I do like it. And just put some mascara on, and the lipstick is one of the 3 new lipsticks. This one is Ray, which is described as a muted mauvey chocolate. To me, this is the epitome of 90s grunge lipstick. I was never trendy enough to be into grunge. I'm not trendy at all now, and I certainly wasn't trendy then. However, I was into the lipsticks, and this was very much a colour that I wore a lot of, although obviously it was MAC because that's what everybody was wearing then. But anyway, this is really lovely, and the formula has got that lovely creamy finish with a creamy texture with a luminous finish. It's a lovely texture, and you just buy the refills, and then the main component that you put the refill in looks like that. But anyway, let me bring you in closer so you can look at the eyeshadow close up. As I said, I did 2 looks. If we look at this one here, I'll just keep my eye closed. That was the one where I used the top middle shade Chrysina a lot, which I was struggling to describe, and I should have known actually. Lisa, of course, describes as an enigmatic silver, which makes me think, okay, there could be a bit of gold in there. But she says it shifts from warm to a cool green, which I'm sure I bow to her description. And then on the other side, this is where I used the Firefly, which is that lovely, it's not quite a gold, but it's got, she describes it as an intense bright yellow gold. It's not a gold, it's a more yellow gold, which I actually find slightly easier to wear. And while I used all the shades in total across both eyes, it's definitely a case that I used the shimmers on both lids, and notwithstanding also the Ablaze, which was the bronzy tone, that I just darkened this up a little bit as well. So let me just show you both looks like this. So they are 2 different looks. However, the colour story is a kind of unified and homogeneous story, so everything just goes together. I have gone for the shimmers, but I did want to say to you that when you look at this, those 3 mattes are just very usable and workable for every day, with just a little bit of pop of colour from the metallics. It's just a very usable and user-friendly colour story, it seems to me. Now, I would like to show you the next lipstick, if I may, and then just show you just a few comparisons. I don't want to drive you bananas, but I think that now there are so many green palettes that do lean green or really commit to green, and I think it's worthwhile just having a quick look at those, because you may not want to have 5 or 6 palettes of green in your collection, because you may not need them. So let me show you the other lipstick. So it is this one, which is called Toasted, and that is described as a true milky tea neutral beige. So there it is. That is so usable, isn't it? That is such an easy to wear shade. Now what I'll do is I'll take this off to show you this one on the lips, and then we'll look at some comparisons. I've lined my lips in 2C in Sculpt and Shade from Lisa Eldridge's own lip pencils, and let's give Toasted a little go. Gosh, that's very 80s as well. I'm here for it, but very easy to wear. In terms of comparisons, I think there are 4 palettes that are worth looking at to help you decide and see whether this is appropriate for you. So this, of course, is our Desert Gleam. Here is Sorcery, completely different, much more wintry, and it may be a palette like Sorcery that makes you think, I'm not really a green person, and it makes you feel a bit green around the gills. Do you see what I did there? But you can see how much softer and easier to use really Desert Gleam is by comparison. In terms of looking at Charlotte Tilbury's Emerald Effects, that really is not the same colour story, although there are some similarities, because what Charlotte Tilbury gives us are some earthy tones as well. But it's still a different colour story, because the Charlotte Tilbury is really much brighter, much more shimmery, much more glam. I'm not saying you can't get soft looks. I've talked about this palette before, and the reason why it's a favourite of mine is you can get some soft looks, but you don't have to buy this palette. You don't have to buy this palette for soft looks. You can get these beigey tones, neutral tones elsewhere. But the Lisa Eldridge gives you a little bit of everything, but it's a softer look. Then we've got YSL's Unexplored Garden, which has taken over 2.5 weeks to get to me, and I've lost interest, and it's a bit annoying because it's expensive. That's what that looks like. Very different. Actually, I mean, I will swatch this for you so that you can have a look at it. The Unexplored Garden has got these 2 shimmers here, and they're very smooth. It's just that what Lisa gives us is actually much more interesting metallics and shimmers, I think. There's more variety. I'm trying not to give the YSL palette a hard time because I had to wait so long for it, and it's just annoying. But Lisa definitely gives us more variety. You can see again when I put them up together. And actually this very light, it's not a white shade in the YSL, but it's very light. That may not be to everybody's taste, because that's quite a lot of brightness. It may be too much brightness as to use it every day, as it were. And then I think the palette that actually bears the most comparison, paradoxically because it's so much bigger, is Natasha Denona's Yucca palette. Here we are. It feels to me that there's a relationship between the 2 of these. Now, it's not so much that I don't mean that one's a dupe of the other. I just mean that there are similarities in terms of the mutedness that you can get if you want to, as well as the pops of colour. Now, as I said earlier, the benefit of a 6-pack is there's not much thinking involved. That goes with that, and you're out the door, or you choose another 2 colours. It's easy. It's just stress-free. Sometimes, and I say this with real love in my heart for all of these palettes, it's just a little bit too much to be looking at a palette of this size and thinking, I just need 2 colours. I don't want to spend the time umming and eyeing, even though I know they'll all work well and they'll all look lovely. It's just a question of deciding. This takes the decision really out of it. It's just, you just pick 2 shades, any shades, I'll go, it's going to be fine. But they do, as I said, it seems to me that there is more of a relationship between the 2 of these. And I think that's a compliment, because I think what Lisa Eldridge has done is reduce down the muted green, usable, earthy tones to this, and it's just easy. This is an easy life, basically, an easy life in a palette. And as I said, and as I keep saying, if you have not dipped your toe in the green eyeshadow palette, with good reason, because it might be a bit intimidating, much as in the winter, Sorcery is a real favourite of mine, but I do appreciate it. It's a bit more in your face. It's a bit more punchy. This is really a lovely way of doing a bit of everything. Enjoying some green toned khaki looks, but without feeling that you have to be looking like, I was going to say an ABBA backup singer, but they didn't have backup singers, did they? They did it all themselves. But without going full 1970s. While Lisa Eldridge has very much channeled the late 60s and 70s with the khaki safari suit look, we're not getting that in-your-face shimmer on the brow bone look, unless you want to go that way. This is really a very soft, easy to use palette. So I think it's worth considering, particularly if you like an easy life and you're like me and you don't need more stress in your life and you don't need your makeup adding stress to your life. Makeup's meant to be a pleasure, and I think this gives us that pleasure without having to do too much thinking. And I have to say, these days, that's something that I really, really value. I realise that I am much more of a green eyeshadow person than I thought I was. And I'm here for the fact that brands are trying to give us a few more incarnations of green, depending on how they interpret that colour story. So for me, this is a win, because I see it as a little bit like the Charlotte Tilbury, although this is more glitzy. I do see it as a palette that you can get a muted look, and so it's very user-friendly. But do you think that? Is this a palette that maybe you've already ordered, or do you feel you've got too much green in your life, or do you not want any at all? Do let me know. Please comment down below and let me know, and do subscribe so you don't miss any more content like this, which hopefully you've enjoyed as well. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.